Hey everybody, Todd here, and welcome back to another Wellness Talks Brief. Today I'm looking a little bit closer at what is diffusion. Diffusion. Which one is it? That's not even a real word, is it, Todd? Well, you may not find it in the dictionary just yet. I think it's something you're going to find there. Another way of thinking of this is cognitive diffusion with an I. But as an ACT therapist who uses the ACT approach often, I really like the word diffusion, because I think it really describes what these kinds of skills, these kinds of actions allow an individual to do, allow us to defuse from a thought. In other words, if you can learn how to use diffusion, it gives you a couple different ways to gain some space from the thought so that you can pivot and move towards something else which matters to you more. So learn a little bit more about this. Don't forget to hit the like button and stick around. I'll be right back to walk you through a little bit more about what it is and how to do it. So again, diffusion. Diffusion. Most of us don't actually realize it, but there are times when we will just get hooked by, stuck in a thought, struggling with a thought. So how diffusion works is actually gives us some space. First, we have to notice that we're stuck in the thought, but I imagine right now as you're watching this video, you can bring to mind a thought that comes up for you often. So I'd like for you to go ahead and actually take that thought and just keep it out here in front of you in your mind's eye. Side note, you can actually write this down, this thought down on a sheet of paper, in a notebook, in a journal, and that in and of itself is part of the act of diffusing. And by putting it on paper and using my body to move and do this, I begin to give myself some distance just doing that. So there's a bonus. Okay, and what I'd like for you to do is go ahead and say that thought out loud. And as you say the thought out loud, what I'd like for you to do is just to notice, as you say the thought, how it shows up, where it shows up, physically, in your body. Just go ahead, say it out loud a couple times if you need to, and just notice. All right. So what I'd like for you to do now is we're going to add something to the very front of this. We're simply going to say, I am thinking whatever your thought was. So I'll use an example. I'm not very good at that. Whatever that happens to be. I'm not very good at that. And when I think about it, it shows up in the pit of my stomach. It's like inside. I'd have to go in. I'd have to break this open to go and pull it out. It's got an intensity, I don't know, like 6, 7. And that was the initial thought. But when I put I am thinking, I say to myself, or I say out loud, I am thinking I am not very good at that. And pay attention to where I can feel that in my body. I begin to notice something. It shifted. It moved up into my chest. It's here. It's not as intense. Because what we're doing is just giving ourselves a little bit of a distance. We're being present, noticing that there's something going on. There's a thought which is dominating this present moment. So go ahead and try that yourself. I am thinking whatever the thought might be. Now, finally, we're going to add one more component to this. I am noticing that I am thinking whatever the thought might be. Once again, using that example, I'm not very good at that. I'm noticing that I'm thinking I'm not very good at that. I'm noticing that I'm thinking whatever your thought is. Just keep saying it out loud and notice what happens. Now, what I've seen happen over and over and over in here, and using this myself, because part of utilizing ACT as a therapist, we've promised that we would actually use the tools, the theories, the approaches, so that we can experience them ourselves and understand just how valid and important they are. I'm noticing that I'm thinking I'm just not good at that. And when I did that, what I notice is that it starts to move again. This time it's out here. It's almost like here in my peripheral. I can almost see it. And the intensity has gone down. And it's further away from me. If I could just turn my head, I can see. Because that's actually what we're doing. Even when we're in the thought, what we're actually doing is that we're noticing that we're thinking, I'm just not very good at that. This may seem trivial, but it does give us that distance. It gives us a situational awareness of what's going on, what's happening out here that may have even caused that thought to just show up, to react, the rules that we have coming back up and showing up here in this present moment. And a lot of times when we created the rule, when we came up with this thought, it was appropriate for the situation that we were in that context. But in this current context, it may not be appropriate at all. And at the very least, it won't be as useful. So while over here it works 100% of the time, over here maybe it works 70%, maybe 30%, maybe not at all. So diffusion is the ability to pull away from. And I do have another video which just walks you through the actual exercise, and you can find that right here. It's an older one. I'm not in it, but it does just walk you through the basics of what we just did right now. Diffusion. Easiest way to think about it is noticing that you're having a thought. I'm noticing that I'm having the thought, blank, 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 whatever it happens to be. Giving us that distance so that we can actually see what we're hooked by, what we're struggling with. And it may be a valid thought, a valid thing that's currently happening. But can we do anything about it right now? And if we can't do anything about it right now, is focusing on it useful? And then finally, what would be useful right now in this moment? We got to have that thing to anchor to. It's going to be a values-based committed action, a direction, something that we can do that in the long run is going to benefit us and everybody else. So there you have it. Diffusion, a way of giving ourselves some distance from our thoughts, giving us some space so that we can actually move and see that it's a thought and there's so much more going on that we could be doing at this moment versus this being all that we see. I hope this was useful. If you liked what I did here today, don't forget to just give me a little like, little thumbs up, and of course, subscribe if you'd like to get more information like this from me in the future. And until the next time, may you be well.